Studio right now, 35th District Representative Dan Griffey. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning. How are you two?
Good. How you doing?
Good.
I'm awesome.
We were just talking a little bit right before we started on the process of floor speeches and time on the floor after the longest floor session this session so far, 3.5 hours or so on the carbon emissions.
3.5 hours on the carbon low carbon fuel standards. Yeah.
Let's get your thoughts on that one fast, quickly here.
Well, I'm a little disappointed. I think we could get there on a lower carbon fuel, but I think what you get is you lose a little bit when you get so wed to a policy. What people don't understand is if you have 20% biodiesel, you can get 20 to 30% less fuel economy, which means you need to burn 20 to 30% more fuel, and the math doesn't work out. It might make you feel good that while it's burning, you emit less carbon emissions, but you have to burn so much more of it that in the end it equals out. So I don't like the policy. I think there are better policies out there. I mean, Trucking Association has been big in Washington State to move to triple trailers like they do in Canada, like they do in Idaho, like they do in Oregon, all around us. Just the amount of carbon that is produced rebuilding the loads in Idaho, in Oregon, and in Canada is a huge amount because they have to rebuild from triples down to doubles. And also, if we would allow triples, not only do we have the carbon reduction benefit, we have it reduces the cost of shipping goods. So we get a twofer. And anytime where we can get that twofer and we can do the good things for the environment, I think we should be looking at it. And that was my argument on the House floor, and I lost.
When you talk about a triple, are you saying that in Oregon and Idaho, you got the driver, you have, and then there's
three trailers.
There's three trailers?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Yeah, they do it. They do it in California, Oregon, Idaho, and in Canada. And I get a lot of criticism when I bring this up, and they say, "Well, the safety," and they have not seen increased safety problems in the other states that do it. Yeah, if a triple trailer wrecks, it's going to be a bigger wreck. But we haven't seen that those states that allow that have a higher incident of traffic collisions than in the states that use doubles.
So would you be able to pull? Was that included in the bill as part of the conversation?
It wasn't. I tried to get it included. The Trucking Association is, really worried. This 20% biodiesel has significant maintenance problems in the places where they've mandated it because the trucks really weren't made to run on that. I think we have if a mechanic would have been allowed in the room, and my family's background is large diesel mechanics, and I've worked on a lot of large diesel products. It wasn't really even taken into account that there's significant fleet-wide breakdowns with this. That wasn't taken into account. There's diesel platforms that just won't work with this type of fuel. I think sometimes those in government, including me, we get so excited about we need to do something and do something now that we forget that if we were just patient, that the next great thing is just around the corner, and our innovators are they're just going crazy to get it done. But, look at compact fluorescent light bulbs. That was going to save the world. But it created a whole toxic refuse stream that we had to come up with a whole program on how we were going to fix. And so that's an example of sometimes we're just a little bit too impatient. If we're more patient, let our innovators free. Like, I tell people in Europe, they say either low carbon tailpipe emissions or hyper fuel economy. The either or, if we would adopt an either or posture, our innovators could go, set them free to get, 100 miles to the gallon diesel powered vehicles or more. It's a physics problem, right? If you let enough air in and the right fuel mixture, you get a lot more power per explosion in your internal combustion engine. So again, I think sometimes my colleagues get just too excited to do something right now, and then you kind of forget the fact that, well, maybe we're pushing the industry a little too hard.
I was just going to say, as a California refugee, it bugs me that I see Washington, my new home, trying to emulate things. California's a disaster. It's a train wreck. Taxes
Yes.
are through the roof. People can't afford to even live in apartments. You've got the average rent in San Francisco at $4,200 for a one-bedroom. Gas is like 60 cents higher than it was a year ago. And it pains me to see Washington, every story I see, following California's lead. California's not leading anybody. They're losing more people every year than they're gaining.
Yeah, they're
People are
coming
getting
here.
out of there.
They're coming here and changing Washington state law
Well,
to
that's the
make it
thing.
look like there.
We left to avoid that, and I see I see all this stuff happening here, and it worries me. But what is this whole fixation with following California's lead when California's in the toilet, frankly?
Well, I don't want to assign motives or impugn my colleagues, but I am disappointed. We also passed the appliance of energy efficiency standard, and we used it's the California model we're using. So basically, we're saying that when California changes their energy efficiency standard for sink or for faucets and for your stoves and microwaves and those sort of things, we're automatically changing ours. And I think that's ceding our authority and responsibility and sovereignty to another state's policymakers. And yeah, it disappoints me. Some would say that they're on the forefront of the environmental movement, but if you look at how many tons of carbon it takes to produce a windmill will never sequester as much carbon as we produce. Now, we have to, like I said, set our innovators free and do some trials out there. So looking at those trials is a good idea. But I contend right now that if we spent our renewable energy taxes that we tax every Washingtonian in Washington to produce all these alternative power generation platforms, if we used it to upgrade the turbines on the Columbia and the Snake River and those, we could very much more quickly move our power generation to 100% carbon free. And again, I think we're pushing too hard, and sometimes we just can't keep up with how fast we push or hard we push.
I'm looking at your, we talked about this too before we got going, the House Bill 1170, is that the fire service mobilization? Yeah. So anyways, that passed bipartisan, 94 yays, no nays, and things like that.
Yeah.
You find it would be easier, kind of going back to the first portion of that triple trailer deal, if these were individual bills and not part of a package of things? Do you think you would get more bipartisanship?
That's how I try to work in Olympia, is to do one-off solutions.
Single issues.
That's how I try to do it, and it seems to work. I'm going to be working with the Trucking Association to try to do another triple conversation, at least over the interim. Obviously, we can't introduce any more new legislation right now, but we certainly can start the conversation while everybody's in Olympia. And there is some bipartisan support to say, hey, let's look at what that is going to save in carbon, and it's going to save a lot.
Yeah. So those you always hear about that, these big, huge package deals, and everybody's like, well, if you have a single issue and you can vote on it, then you can at least work on it if it doesn't pass.
Well, there was a couple good big package discussions that we passed. One on DUI reform that was, I think, an amazing policy, and I think it's really going to save lives. On one side, it makes it easier for law enforcement to say you were in control of a vehicle or materially in control of a vehicle. So it's tougher, a lot tougher. And on the other side, it says if you can safely pull off the road, you take the keys out of the ignition, you put the keys somewhere else in the car, and you get out of the driver's seat, you make the right decision, we're not going to arrest you. And I believe that policy is going to save lives. And we should advertise it when it comes out. It said, here's the deal. If you're going to make the dumb decision to drive under the influence, and you have a momentary
moment
of clarity, momentary breakthrough of clarity, and you pull off the road and you do those things, then we're going to respect the fact you did that, and I think it could save lives.
Interesting. What's coming over from the Senate that that you like and may have some concerns?
There's quite a bills. There's a lot more gun restriction bills coming out of the Senate than came out of the House, and we'll be watching those. I think it's disappointing. In the House, we passed a bill that effectively completely eliminates gun shows in Washington State. And, I remember at 10 years old being taken, my dad took me to the Washington Arms Collectors Gun Show. And I think it's really sad. It's kind of, whether you're pro-gun or you're anti-gun, it's just a way of life. And gun collectors don't look at them as tools. They look at them as toys, if you will. And they have, it's fun for them. And it's just disappointing that we're not going to, after June, we probably won't have another gun show in Washington State.
It reminds me, that's kind of like getting rid of like car shows because of the emissions from these old cars. I mean, it's this same kind of mentality.
Well, I look at it. The 35th has strong traditions: hunting, fishing, outdoors. You go out. I hear stories all the time. You go out hunting with your grandfather. You go hunting with your father, and that's why I was pushing back on the, you had to be 21 to buy a rifle, because you wait your whole life, you're hunting, you're fishing, and you're like, I'm going to go out and buy my hunting rifle. I've been waiting to do that. Well, now I got to wait till I'm 21. Where does it end? I talk to people as maybe we should expect more in school at early ages and help guide our young adults to adulthood by 18 years old, instead of making excuses where they can't do things until they're 21 or 25 and that sort of thing. I just find it terrible that you could be drafted and go fight for your country at 18 years old, but we say you're not enough of an adult to make the good decision and the righteous decision on how to buy a firearm. It just disappoints me.
They give you one if you join the Army, right?
They will certainly they'll give you a fully automatic M16.
DanGriffey.HouseRepublicans.wa.gov, website for Dan, where you can connect with him, also see him across all the social media platforms. And we do appreciate you being here in studio, of course, as always.
Well, thank you so much. It's nice seeing both of you.